What I'm going to attempt to do is a serious bit of forecasting, not based on techie enthusiasm, but on understanding some major forces that are already well underway and the consequences of them. First of all, I'm going to draw on a bit of a story from my background from 27 years with a major chemical company called ICI. How many people remember ICI? Oh, good. I'm amongst, I think, friends. One of the businesses that I was quite close to there was the fertilizer business. And very interesting story because big manufacturing plant, a bit like a big data center. They got very good energy prices for reasons I won't go into for a period of 15 years that gave them a big inside track in their raw material cost competition. Made a lot of money. Come to the end of that 15 years, they were still technologically excellent, they could still run a good plant, but they were dead within 2 years. And they were dead because they hadn't had the competition that had 15 years of really learning how to run the operational side better and better in 1,000 billion little ways that had given them an edge that ICI couldn't build in 2 years. And it's what I'm going to call the key importance of operational experience built under competitive pressure, which is something that's not well enough understood as we go forward in the industry. Because what's happening in the operational side, in our data centers, in our networks, in the underlying infrastructural stuff of our industry, is that Moore's law created massive reduction in the cost of processing a byte. That's being exploited, virtualization to automate. And the companies that have taken the lead in really learning how to run the big data centers are the ones who, under immense competitive pressure in the consumer space, the Amazons and the Googles and co, learned how to run those plants with very few people, high production skills, highly automated, highly standardized. And they've brought into play, as you well know, a whole series of new service models for that underlying infrastructural compute stuff. That is the foundation of the cloud. But alongside that is the experience that they've built that's very difficult for a lot of the oligopoly, the more traditional suppliers, to copy in great speed. So the vendor landscape is beginning to be changed by the emergence of these underlying forces that say we can do things very, very much more cheaply. We can Google Apps, we can do 30 quid per year. You can have a very good desktop services and things like that. So if you now begin applying that fundamental transformation coming through, what it says is that large chunks of our industry that classically have been very much bums-on-seats stuff are beginning to be highly automated. And the bums-on-seats stuff is moving to where the bums-on-seats are rarely valued. For example, there's a company I follow closely called FastFill, who are the bee's knees in providing services to derivatives traders, because they have people there who really understand very intimately what derivatives trading is about. And that's the kind of company that begins to make real headway, not because it can run data centers very well, but because it really understands what the customer's business is about with great detail, and as the customer develops, they can move and develop with the customer. So let me give you the emerging vision of what the future is going to be like, and then I'll make 7 very specific forecasts of what comes up. I think the vendor side of our industry is going to divide into 2 very clear halves. One half is going to be the people who provide the platforms we operate on. These are the integrated networks, computing, the security and everything like that. And they are produced in massive, highly automated, 24/7, lights out service factories, and they value the manufacturing skills that make those places work. That is a very specific set of skills, and the kind of companies that do that are not good at doing all the other things in the industry. What they are is very good at providing those underlying platforms. You're going to see companies in that area already, like Amazon, grow and increasingly dominate, and they're going to bring in partners who can bring intimacy with other areas. For example, if you look closely, you'll see General Electric, with its tremendous understanding of the industrial environment, getting into partnership with Amazon to begin providing a platform for the Internet of Things, because General Electric understands the things that are making up the Internet of Things. So that is that, and the companies that are caught in that, like Oracle, are beginning to fight for where they fit, and Dell is having to take itself out of private equity to find out how it's going to fit, and there are going to be a lot of companies that aren't moving fast enough, they're going to go. That is one big chunk of the industry. The other chunk of the industry is mainly small to medium-sized enterprises who sit on those platforms and very innovatively provide all the services and applications and things like that. They have a high degree of intimacy with the end market. They are service-oriented. They create business services. They are not technology companies. They are about services that grow on that. And therefore, they are a totally different set of companies that we rely on. So I was talking to BBC, the gentleman from BBC here tonight, and I would be rude enough to say what BBC needs is a good underlying platform that's tuned to the need of the broadcasting industry, and then a myriad of small to medium-sized companies as partners creating all sorts of services on that are fit for purpose, and similarly for police or whatever. That change is taking its time to come for very good reasons, that tremendous amount of legacy stuff that has to be sorted out first before government or enterprise can begin using a lot of this new stuff. A lot of the vendors have got to either pull back, re-establish their business models, get out of the way and allow a different set of players to come in. And we've got to learn how to use these newer capabilities. But bit by bit, the change forces are so real that those will come through. So what I'm going to propose, while I've still got a bit of time, is 7 specific changes over the next 5 years that I think will come. The first is that enterprise and government will basically move to this basic pattern: we source an underlying platform, and the vendor community will slowly develop companies that are very good at providing those highly automated, standardized, reliable platforms. On that, the new world is about the delivery and sourcing of business services, not technology services, but business services, and generally sourced by users and not the IT folk. And that's the message of the new world. Business services are basically best designed from the user into the technology. You have to design by people who understand what the users are about. Who knows the story of Google Wave? Yeah? Classic example of a technology into, we think this is what the users are going to be, and it was a total failure. The whole move is to move into designing services on platforms that come from the heart of what the business is about. And if I'm allowed to do a small commercial plug, because I didn't write it, I think the emerging Bible is going to be this book called This is Service Design Thinking. And it is well worth reading. It's a bloody good book, and it shifts the changing. If this gets taken on board by our industry, we're in for a really interesting ride. I think the fourth thing is that this era of what we call, is it going to be private cloud, is it going to be public cloud, is a transitory phenomenon. There ain't going to be private clouds. The public clouds is where the real expertise in making these platforms work exists. And I would forecast that within 5 years, all of government, all of enterprise virtually will be on public clouds, on public platforms. And we will wonder why we spent time talking about private clouds at all. And a lot of IT folk are going to have to bite their fingernails on that, but it's the reality of the way we're heading. With the right underlying technology standards, services can be integrated. Service integration is a far more flexible, rapid way of creating new services than systems integration. So the future lies, I think, with service integrations and the capabilities that go there. And as a consequence of that, the classic systems integrators, who are caught with business models that are bums on seats, dealing with complexity, pulling systems apart and putting together, I think are doomed. And my next forecast for tonight is that the systems integrators are going to be dead and buried within 5 years. I wouldn't invest in them at all. The one possible area that they may have for a future is that there's going to be a major market opportunity for unraveling all the legacy systems, disintegrating them into service structures on the platforms, and therefore maybe the future for the more innovative systems integrators is to turn themselves into systems disintegrators and offer the services for a few years that are necessary to help the revolution go through, and then close up, take their pensions and go out. That's a vision for the future, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.